Hey everybody, it's Alicia from Graceful Plants, and today I'm going to show you what to do to try to save your plant if your string of bananas or string of pearls gets a little bit dried out. So here is my poor little string of bananas. Wah, wah, wah. And she is kind of a hot mess down here, but you can see there is some new growth on her. But you look towards the top here and around her backside, she is a little bald. And that is at the fault of her terrible mama. So I originally had her over in this window, which is actually above a heating vent here. But I had her up here and we didn't have the heat turned on yet. So I figured, it was fine. She was enjoying the window and I would move her when we turned the heat on. But as you can see from a lot of her vines, I unfortunately did not get her moved in time. We turned the heat on and she got a little crispy. So the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to take this poor girl down, get her out of her macrame hanger, and kind of just assess the damage and go from there. All right, so now that I've got her down, I'm just going to kind of carefully take her out of this macrame hanger because she is a little interwoven with some of these strands. All right, so as you can see, there is a lot of dried up little bitty bananas in here. And like I said before, it's completely my fault. It was one of those mom brain, oh, I'll get to it before I need to do it, and never got to it, and now I'm cleaning up the mess. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go through here and kind of just clean up any of this dried up bananas, because that will help keep the bugs and mold and junk away if I can get as much of this dead stuff off before I try to reroot these guys. So I'm just gonna go through here and clean this all off. All right, so 20 minutes and half a pot of dead bananas later, I've gone through and I've picked off most of the dead stuff. I mean, there's some that are still gonna be stuck in here, but for the most part, she's got her roots cleaned up here. So there's a couple things I want to mention. My plant wasn't actually dead. It was just very, very dry. So that is bonus because it's going to make rerooting this a lot easier. The stems were still in healthy conditions, just the bananas a little crispy. And if this happens to your plant, you don't need to go through and pick off all of the dead pearls or bananas and whatnot. I just like to do it because, one, it kind of deters the bugs a little bit by getting rid of all of that, decomposing plant matter. So kind of helps keep the bugs at bay. And another reason is then I don't have a constant reminder that I'm a plant mom failure. If I get rid of all those little dried bananas, I don't have to remember that I suck. So, twofold. Helps with bugs, helps me feel better about almost killing a plant. So there are a couple different ways that you can go about rerooting your string of bananas or string of pearls. Luckily, my stems or my strands are still fairly healthy and rooted in nicely, so I'm going to just leave them in the pot. I'm not going to tear them up and I'm not going to cut them. I will show you with this guy though, because he was just a little bit of collateral damage when I was untangling them, that if you do have strands that break off, or if you're giving your plant a haircut, this works too. As you can see, he's got some nice aerial roots on him. What we're gonna do is we're just going to gently put them back on top of the soil here, making sure that those aerial roots are making contact with the soil. And you can just wrap them around in the pot. If the strand doesn't like to stay put, I'm going to be using these greening pins to help keep them in place. You can also use paper clips or bobby pins, whatever you've got. I mean, you could even use like small pebbles or anything like that to kind of keep them in place until they root in. But I'm just going to take this greening pin and gently push it down over that vine there to kind of hold it in place until those roots start getting rooted in. And I left the end kind of hanging off here because I'm going to be wrapping quite a few vines around in here and I might run out of room. And since all of these are pretty much bald, I'm not going to wrap all of these around on the soil, but I'm going to do a lot of them. So I've kind of divided this up into two sections. So I've got a couple of strands here and I am just going to push them back down into the pot here so that they're closer to the soil. And I'm just going to ever so gently wrap them around here. And as you can see, I'm not wrapping the full strand because these guys down here are healthy. I'm just wrapping the bald ends of the strands back into the pot. So we've got those wrapped around, and I'm going to take another greening pin and just gently push that back into place. So I'm going to go around and I'm going to do that with the majority of these strands. So eventually the strands that you're going to be pushing into the pot will start to reroot and grow new babies out of the bald ends while still keeping kind of the full ends outside of your pot. All right. So I've got a majority of the strands that had decent aerial roots kind of gently wrapped around back on top of the soil here. So I am going to put her back in the macrame hanger and get her back up in the window away from the direct line of the hot air vent. And hopefully she will start bouncing back here before too long. All right, so there we go. I mean, she looks a lot better than she did. So if this ever happens to you, know that, it might not look pretty, but your plant is salvageable. Just because, you have some naked strands doesn't mean your plant is on the way out. A few things to note is that you don't need to use the greening pins if you don't want to. It just makes it easier to hold the strands in place while they're rerooting back into your pot. I will put a link to the greening pins that I use down below in the description. As always, you guys are awesome. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you aren't already. And if you like this video or any of my other videos, share it. I'd appreciate it. But let me know in the comments below if you've ever had this happen to your string of bananas or beads or pearls, any of your string plants. Let me know that I'm not alone. But otherwise, we will see you in the next one. Bye, guys.